Hello and welcome to Comcast NewsMakers. We're here in New Mexico, Santa Fe's Roundhouse, next door at Rio Chama. And I would like to introduce you to Senator Michael Padilla. Hi, Senator. How are you?
Good morning, Erin. Thank you for having me.
And we were just talking about this a minute ago. You're the majority whip of the Senate. What does that mean for our viewers that might not know what that means?
Well, the Senate Majority Whip is the #2 senator, essentially. I support the majority leader and all of the caucus members. So I'm a Democrat, and we are the majority in the New Mexico State Senate. And it's my responsibility to advance our legislative agenda and to stop things that we really don't want to see happening that might come from either the Republican caucus in the Senate or the House of Representatives. They are controlled by the Republicans right now. One of my busiest days, or parts of the day, is to make sure that basically all the cheeks are in the seats when they're supposed to, and that is like herding 25 cats.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
My workload's gone up by about 3 times, and but it's a lot of fun, and I asked for it, and I'm really enjoying it. I think we're getting a lot done this time.
Oh, well, that's a great opportunity. And as a senator, remind our viewers what area you represent in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I came to the Senate in 2013, and I represent the southwest quadrant of Bernalillo County, so the historic and picturesque and the most beautiful part of New Mexico, which is called the South Valley. I'm from a community called Los Padillas, and I'm a Padilla from Los Padillas. and I also represent the Southwest Mesa, which is also a very historical area here in New Mexico. There is a lot of growth out there. We have seen about 90,000 new residents in my area of the state in the past 15 years, and so it facilitated having another Senate seat there. So I joined the Senate 2 years ago. It's been about 90 years since a 2-year freshman has been elected as the majority whip.
That's great. And you have a few things that you're following right now as your priorities, and early education is one of your top priorities. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe any bills that you're watching or pushing right now?
Yeah, so I was working on driving and fully funding early education programs for about 2 years before I became a senator, and so it's really the reason I ran. I see it as one of the last things that we can really do, that we can change New Mexico in a structural way, in a really big way. I have a proposal right now, which is a constitutional amendment that will fully fund early education programs here in New Mexico for at least the next 50 years. Wow. Our folks that founded New Mexico back in 1912, they had a lot of foresight, and they set up something called the Permanent Land Grant Fund. And so we take about 5.5% of the returns on that investment every year to fund public education. What I'm trying to do is take 1 additional percent to fund early education, prenatal through age 5. And what that does is it prepares the kiddos for, going to kindergarten, and it presents better raw material to the kindergarten class. So over the past 30 years, if you look at that land grant fund, we've seen about a 9.3% return on average for the past 30 years. So we take 5.5 for public education, just 1 more percent for early education, that's 6.5%. The fund will continue to grow as it has. It actually grew $3 billion between 2008 and 2012. It'll continue to grow, maybe just not as fast. And we'll be able to provide high quality early education programs across New Mexico for every child in New Mexico, as well as home visitation services for the firstborn child. And if we can do that, we will see better reading scores at 3rd grade, better math and science scores at 8th grade. And the Legislative Finance Committee, which is one of our most important committees, they did a study of my legislation, and we found that if we can drop the dropout rate in New Mexico to under 10%, we're going to see a $700 million a year savings. So that 1% on the land grant fund equates to about $150 million a year, $175 million. It'll continue to grow because the fund continues to grow. But $175 million investment for a $700 million a year savings, I'll take that investment any day of the week.
Right. And how much is in that fund, the permanent fund?
Well, at the moment, there's about $14 billion in that fund right now.
Wow. So
it's a very successful thing that New Mexico has done. So it's focused on education. That's what it's there for. But if we focus on those first 5 years of life, prenatal through age 5, then basically we're going to get better throughput in the 5.5% that we spend for public education. So it's basically preparing the raw material to build the house.
Right. So where do you foresee those the permanent the education fund that you're supporting the education bill?
Well, it's a very difficult thing to do. This is a very big decision for the state of New Mexico. When you think about it, this fund has been successful because we've been very prudent in how we've invested it over the years. So we have to go through the entire legislature. That's step one. It bypasses the governor because it's a constitutional amendment. It goes straight to the voters in the next general election. So we've got to pass the voters. Then after we go through the voters, then we have to go to Congress actually because it's a land grant to New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
But basically when the legislature has done something and the voters have approved it, the Congress basically, it's like a consent item. And I know you know what those are. And so in a consent item, basically the Congress is saying, well, the legislature says they want it, the voters have said they want it of that state, so we're basically going to approve this.
Put their stamp on it.
Yeah, and so we've done a couple of things just to make sure that we get what we want out of it. We've put a 10-year sunset, so if it's not doing what we want it to do within 10 years, it will stop.
Okay.
We've also, we're going to gradually increase the amount up to the 1%, not just immediately, boom,
Right.
And so what that's going to do is it's going to infuse about $150, $175 million into the New Mexico economy. So overnight, even before we see the true gains of the public education results down the road, we're going to have to build the high-quality child care centers, hire the high-quality professionals to work in those centers, hire the home visitors. So it's immediately going to create anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 jobs, literally overnight. So that's a very positive thing. And then it's going to reap those benefits that I've talked about.
So real quick, how long do you foresee that taking place until
we actually get to see it? I mean, at the moment, the earliest that we could see it is 2017, because you got to figure we've got to get through the legislature, then we've got to get through the voters in 16, then we've got to get through Congress, which will be a very quick process, but then we would actually begin to see this happen in 2017. The downstream benefits of investing